must cover the biggest story in the country right now. 47 years of incompetence, cronyism, and corruption just caught up with Joe Biden. That's the focus of tonight's preamble. The New York Post dropped a bombshell story yesterday alleging that they were in possession of emails from an executive from a corrupt Ukrainian energy company, Burisma. The emails show that then VP Joe Biden held an off-the-books meeting with that executive. The meeting was facilitated by Biden's son, Hunter, who was hired by Burisma despite not speaking the language, having no experience in the energy industry, and having no apparent expertise to offer the company whatsoever. In Des Moines, Iowa, President Trump addressed this damning report.
Just learned through explosive documents published by a very fine newspaper, the New York Post, that Joe Biden has been blatantly lying about his involvement in his son's corrupt business dealing. And this is a big smoking gun. The newly uncovered emails reveal that a top executive from the highly questionable Ukrainian company, it's an energy company, wrote to Hunter arranging for a meeting to meet with Vice President Joe Biden. Same Ukrainian energy executive even sent Hunter an email saying, quote, "We urgently need your advice on how you could use your influence."
Use your influence. Hunter Biden collected massive amounts of money from Burisma. Some news outlets have reported $50,000 a month, others as high as $83,000 a month. What's clear is that the only thing of value Hunter Biden had to offer Burisma was access to the Obama White House through his vice president daddy. On several occasions, Biden has said he had no idea what his son was up to at Burisma.
What's your understanding of what your son was doing for an extraordinary amount of money?
I don't know what he was doing. I know he was on the board. I found out he was on the board after he was on the board, and that was it.
That was it. Okay, now if these emails prove genuine, Biden's claim is another blatant lie from the Democrat nominee for president. He claims, I had no idea. Reports also indicate that the FBI was in possession of the laptop containing these emails. The FBI has allegedly had this laptop since 2019, and that begs another question. Why has FBI Director Christopher Wray, a man who has been obstructing congressional investigations into wrongdoing by the Obama administration, why has he been sitting on this evidence since last year? It is our hope that some Republican somewhere asks that question and gets some answers. What we do know is that the end result of all of this corruption, we do know why Hunter Biden walked away with an estimated $3 million from the Ukrainian company Burisma.
I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, what, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money.
Burisma needed Vice President Biden to use his leverage, your taxpayer money, to get the Ukrainian prosecutor fired, the prosecutor who just so happened to be investigating Burisma. All the major networks have been ignoring the story. On the morning show, we took a call from Art in Chicago. He told us when he called all of his local stations asking why they hadn't reported on this major story, they told him they were trying to verify its authenticity. Now that's funny. Those very same news stations didn't hesitate reporting the New York Times story alleging Donald Trump hadn't paid any taxes. We know that no station in Chicago, or any place else for that matter, had confirmed the documents cited by the New York Times, if they were real or not, because the Times refused to show anybody, not even the President of the United States, what they had. Dishonest and liberal biased newsrooms simply attributed the story to the New York Times. So why wouldn't they do the same for the New York Post? Well, the answer is, well, quite simple. If it's bad news for a Republican, anything gets reported. If it's bad news for a Democrat, so-called news outlets suddenly need to dot every I and cross every T. This is liberal bias on full display in the majority of newsrooms across this country. That's why you can't trust them anymore. Corporate news outlets or corrupt news outlets are one thing. But what the social media giants did was a totalitarian cut above simple bias.
that false and libelous stories every day, false and libelous stories, and they knew they were false too. They knew they were false. They were never taken down by Twitter or Facebook or the mainstream media, never once. Yet with Biden today, they take negative posts down almost before they even go up. They're trying to protect him.
Twitter and Facebook simply refused to allow the story to be shared or posted. Facebook claimed their merry band of Marxists that they call fact checkers had to vet the story before they'd allow it to be shared. Twitter claimed with a straight face that they wouldn't allow hacked documents to be displayed on their platform. In fact, they wouldn't even let their users share the links to the story using the direct message feature on Twitter. Now remember, the Trump tax story was written with alleged documents that were illegally obtained. But Twitter and Facebook, they didn't censor that story. Congress is now preparing subpoenas for the social media giants to answer for what they have done with just 19 days before the election. Some members are suggesting the suppression of the story constitutes an in-kind contribution to the DNC and Biden's campaign. Others see this as proof positive that the social media giants need to be stripped of their 230 exemptions and forced to quit pretending that they are open forums. Just so my audience understands this, it's perfectly legal to suppress conservative stories and bad news for liberal politicians. Hell, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, and the Washington Post, they do it all the time, all day long. They are liberal propaganda groups, not news organizations, but they do have rules that govern them and that leave them open to lawsuits. Facebook and Twitter are just like those biased publishers. They are not forums anymore, and they deserve to be sued for their misrepresentations, the harm they have caused to people's brands, and their secretive business practices. If only we had a Congress that believed in working for a living.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.